Hey, welcome back to the Big Ranch Show. As always, thank you for joining me. If you could, hit that subscribe button down below and let's get right to it. Now, did you watch Roseanne yesterday? Of course I did. I'll be watching every episode that there is of this reboot because I love Roseanne, the Roseanne show. I really enjoy watching Roseanne Barr stand up and her politics or whatever. I really don't care. A lot of y'all don't, a lot of people out there don't like Roseanne because of her politics, and I don't really care about her politics. Um, she's still more socially liberal than a lot of the other people I know, and especially of the people that support Donald Trump. She's still very socially liberal when it comes to things like gay rights and women's rights and equality in general. So I have no problem with it, so I'll be watching the show. But let's get to the review of the show. The show centers around Becky and her plans for being a surrogate. It's been the theme running through the show, the first few episodes of the show, and she's been trying to do this. She's even lied about her age in order to get this woman to let her be her surrogate. Of course, this is the person playing the woman that Becky's trying to be a surrogate for. Played I believe the second Becky on the original show of Roseanne when they had to recast the original Becky. Now, it gets down to it where it kind of comes out that she had lied about her age, even though it doesn't really say it. Um, the doctor, tells her, "Hey, you're 30. You may be 33 years old, but you have the eggs of a much much older woman." And at that point, it kind of ends the whole surrogacy plans, and all of a sudden, she finds herself at a loss. She goes back to work, and I guess when she's done, she starts drinking and ends up getting Darlene over to the place, and they start talking, and they start drinking, and they start kind of asking. She asks, "What's wrong with me?" And Darlene points out something that was probably the most heart wrenching part of the entire episode for me, even more so than the fact that she was turned down for the surrogacy thing, was the fact that they talk about her husband. And of course, the original actor that played her husband, Mark, he passed away back in 2002 of a drug overdose, and so he's not in the show. But they wrote him out as if he passed away, and Darlene says something kind of painful. She's like, you may not notice it, but since he's gone, or since he's been gone, you're standing still, basically, saying, you've let the world just go around you, and not you haven't done anything. And that's that was kind of heart wrenching to me to hear. It's kind of a sad point in the episode. Now, of course, there's always that's how Roseanne always was, though. You had laughs, and sometimes you had some tragic things and some more sad details that would pop up during the show. And because they run a show they try to hold it as true to life as possible. And I wish more people would understand that. People are like, it's too real. I'm like, that's the point. That's what Roseanne always was. Roseanne's always taken the real issues, tried to make some jokes with it, but at the same time also hit you with the actual problem. They did this earlier in the season when they highlighted the boy who happens to like to wear girls' clothing. They touched on that, and they even had a sentimental moment with that. And that's just what Roseanne does. Roseanne wants her show to be as true to life as possible about the issues that are facing Americans this very day. And people are in hard times. People are trying to do things like get paid to be a surrogate, and this is one of the downfalls that can't happen. Where you get your hopes up that you're going to get a paycheck for doing something, then you find out you can't do it. And so I think it was a very touching episode. I think it was a very interesting way to show the surrogacy thing. I've seen it done on other shows where it wasn't as cut and dry, I guess you could say. But I think the show's got a good thing there. I think it's done a really good job of trying to show some of the plight that some Americans are dealing with every day, pretty much of the week. Now, some people say that it's a little disingenuous because she's so rich and this and that. But just because somebody is rich does not make them a bad person. Just because they're rich doesn't mean that they cannot identify with those of us who are poor, or have less money than them, especially those that grew up poor. And if I remember correctly, Roseanne did not grow up wealthy. I could be wrong there. If I'm wrong, correct me down in the comments. So in the end, she had to give back this Fabergé egg that the lady gave her. It was a really pretty, one of those big, pretty Fabergé eggs. I guess they called it expensive. And I thought that was kind of interesting that they would give an egg the day she was going to go try to get her eggs fertilized. I thought that was kind of funny. And then in the end, of course, one of the funniest scenes pretty much of the entire episode to me was Jackie trying to prevent the lady from taking the Fabergé egg back. So she's finally like, well, I've got to take the egg. And Becky just gives it to her and says, I don't need it anyway. And of course, it touched on one other issue, though. And it was an issue that I think is insane. I don't see it as a problem here, but maybe this is actually a problem in some parts of the country. But Becky, when she thought she was going to get a payday, she went and adopted a dog. She thought she was going to get this $50,000, be able to buy a small little house with a yard, and have a place for the dog. So she took the dog back to the Humane Society or whatever, or the city pound. Because she wasn't going to be able to have a yard for it. And so Jackie Roseanne and Jackie decide to go get the dog back. So Jackie goes by herself to get it because Roseanne had an Uber run to make. So Jackie was sent there. And when Jackie came back, Jackie was like, I can't get the dog. And the dog and Roseanne's like, what the hell? Why not? You're the perfect candidate for a dog. You're alone. You have nothing to do. And apparently, this I kind of guess there was I'm not sure if this is a problem, but I do know that there are regulations and rules sometimes at some humane societies on who can get a pet. And like I dealt with my landlord, you had to make sure your pets were all your current pets were immunized, and that your landlord would allow it, things like that. But in this one, they went on the idea that Jackie was too old. They were calling Jackie too old, saying, what if she dies? And to sit there and tell somebody, though, that you wouldn't be able to have, if there's a place in this country that turns people down for a pet who needs a home just because of their age, then that is repulsive. That is wrong, and it should never happen. I'm hoping this is just an exaggeration of something that they had heard about, and they wanted to highlight the point that these, the animals need homes, and that that people shouldn't have so many regulations preventing them from adopting an animal that needs a home. And so at the end of the day, she gets the dog, tells the lady she's going to let Jackie tell it goodbye for a minute, and then she tells Jackie to run out the door. And as Jackie's going, the lady's like, "I'm going to call the cops," and Roseanne's like, you can't call the cops. She is the cops, basically telling her that she's one of Lanford's finest. And of course, Jackie, was a cop at one point on the show on the original show. And so it was kind of funny. And then in the end, the whole family, at least some of the family, you got Darlene and Becky and Dan and Roseanne end up at Becky's work because she calls an Uber, or Darlene is called an Uber or whatever. And so it turns out that there's a swap between the original Uber driver that was supposed to be there and Roseanne. And so Roseanne shows up and they have a conversation with Becky. She has a conversation with Becky while Dan and Darlene dance. And basically, Roseanne apologizes for the way she was treating her, saying she should have been there for her, regardless of how she felt about it. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people have to deal with sometimes. You have to, especially I'm going to assume some parents are like that, but I haven't had to really deal with that. My mom's been great. She's always been, been here when I needed her. And I've never gone through something as big as trying to have a baby. I guess I wouldn't because I'm a man, Men don't do that. Uh, but you get the point, that some parents do have that problem where they react first and then they realize that they screwed up later. Because people are only human, even parents. And I think that's kind of what they touched on, is that, even if you don't like what somebody in your family's doing, you still have to love them. You still need to support them. If it's not breaking any laws and they're not hurting anybody, then you should probably support them. Even if you don't like what they're doing. And that's just, I think, what you have to do. And I know a lot of people are going to see that episode and think, oh, this is so terrible how she treated her daughter. But if you notice by the end of it, they've come back together and they've fixed the problem. It was good to see. It was fun. It was a fun episode in places, a sad episode in others. And if you haven't watched it, I suggest you get to your television, you watch it on demand or whatever as soon as you can. We keep it on a series record just in case we miss an episode on the DVR. And so, if you like Roseanne, I think you'll like the episode. If you like the original Roseanne, I think you'll feel like you're watching the original, because it's got a lot of the same stuff. It's got some of the infighting. It's got some of the bickering, and it's got some of the back and forth between Roseanne and Dan, which is always hilarious. And it very much felt like, it didn't feel like it was a reboot episode. It felt like I was actually watching just a continuation of the original series. And I think that's what this episode was intended to be about. Now, I know Roseanne live tweeted during it. I did not get to watch. I wasn't on Twitter. I was too busy watching the show. I don't really get into the whole live tweeting of things because I don't have time to type while I'm busy watching. But anyhow, this has been the Big Rant Show. I've been your host, Jacob Keck. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you down the road. And I think on Friday I have a special video for you over cloning and the possibility of human designer babies. Anyhow, y'all have a great day. I'll see you down the road, and have a great day.